right, good evening everybody. Welcome back, it's good to see you. Happy Friday to everybody. Let's do a quick audio and visual check in the chat as always. So if you guys could hear us, and if we're streaming in 1080p, also if you can rewind, if you have the DVR, just go ahead and give a thumbs up in the chat and we will get started here in just a moment. Thanks so much. All right, I think we will go ahead and get started. Everything looks pretty good. So good evening everybody and welcome back to Walks and Wall Street. Today is February 23rd, 2024. It's about 8:57 p.m. Eastern Time here live from New York City. Now, we are quite literally sitting right outside of the GM building. So the very famous GM building. Across the street, you see the iconic Plaza Hotel. And just behind it, you have the one and only Steinway Tower, which is the skinniest residential apartment building in the entire world. You also have the 24/7, 365 Apple Store, the flagship here. And to the right, last but not least, you have the Sherry Netherland Hotel. We're going to be talking about a couple things tonight. I really briefly want to start off just by covering the bond market for a little bit. Let's take a look at the US 10-year Treasury yield. Now, the bond market had a little bit of a rally today. So yields were down about 2% on the 10-year US Treasury. 10 years currently trading at 4.25%. So 4.25%. If we go to cnbc.com/bonds, we'll take a look at the yield curve. We'll take a look at that main spread between the 10 and the 2s. Currently, the 2-year Treasury is at 4.68%, and the 10-year is at 4.25%. So when you look at the shorter end of the curve, yields have actually blown off quite a bit. You have the 2-month almost just below 4.5, just about 4.459%. 6-month is at 5.351%, and then the further out you go on the yield curve, 30-year, for example, is 4.366%. So quite interesting stuff. We'll talk about what that means. We'll keep our eye on a transitioning yield curve and how we can interpret the yield curve appropriately to gain a competitive advantage in the market. So the S&P 500 today did close up 1 point, or about 0.03%, so pretty much flat on the day. S&P 500, the cash close was 5,088 even. Now, we've actually rallied quite a bit throughout the day. The close was pretty concerning, I would say. We closed right at the dead low of the day on the S&P. So I wouldn't be surprised if we start to pull back a little bit next week. The 50-day moving average on the S&P 500 comes in right at 4850. That means currently we're about 5% extended. Intraday, we were about 6% extended above the 50-day. Obviously, NVIDIA reported this week. Absolute blowout. Earnings report there showing a lot of strength, even following through with that strength today. But again, NVIDIA traded all the way up at about $823 a share today. It was wild. And reversed, closed pretty much at the dead low of the day at about $788. Now, that's usually what you call like a reversal day, right? So you'll have the market testing the buyers and sellers at the top. Once there's no more buyers, they reverse down, and you had a huge influx of volume coming in at power hour, which is the last hour of the trading day. So I wouldn't be surprised if the market kind of consolidates and pulls back next week. And that's actually a good thing. That's a bullish sign. This is something we've been talking about for quite some time now. I think it is time for some of these mega cap stocks to take a breather and watch for a potential sector rotation in some of the smaller caps into some of the less loved sectors, right? I would like to see money going into biotech and the like. And we'll talk about those individual sectors here in a moment. Another thing we forgot to cover, because NVIDIA pretty much stole the show the entire week, is existing home sales. So existing home sales, we got the number out from the National Association of Realtors yesterday, and home sales actually rose 3% to start to the year. But obviously higher mortgage rates are already starting to impact the market. Things have been pretty slow. Obviously, I am in the real estate business. I would say on the higher end of the luxury sector. Deal flow has been okay. Things have been busy. It's just not a lot of stuff closing. So, inventory of home sales in January increased to 1.01 million units. That's up 3% from January of 2023. So inventory is starting to come on the market, but that's still only 3 months of supply. According to economists out there, you're supposed to have about 6 months of supply on the market to be deemed in balance with buyers and sellers. So the market is still tight. Now, the median existing home price of all housing types for January was $379,100. That is up 5.1% from a year earlier and reaching a new all-time record high for the month of January. So this is an interesting market. We have sales transactions pretty much coming to a screeching halt. 2023 was the worst years for individual home sales, right? No transaction volume pretty much being done at all after a record 2021. But the interesting thing is prices have still remained traditionally elevated, right? Particularly in some very white-hot markets. So to have the median existing home price for all housing types be approaching $400,000, right? $379,000 to be exact, have that be up 5.1% year over year, that's a little concerning. And I think the only thing that's going to solve that problem, which we've also been talking about, is supply. I think we're underbuilding in the United States. The more supply you have on the market, the more that satiates demand, the more prices come down to a reasonable level. That's kind of what we're seeing in Austin, Texas, right? Austin, they've been building a lot, and actually prices are starting to soften and come down, which is a good thing, right? We want people to be able to afford homes. We want people to be able to achieve home ownership, the American dream, because as we know, that statistic, the vast majority of Americans' net worth is tied up in equity in their homes. So what does that mean? Well, if home ownership is out of reach for millennials and Gen Z and younger generations, well, how are they going to build wealth? I don't know. All right, everybody, a last quick announcement. I did send out the Behind the Street newsletter to everybody on Thursday. If you did not receive that, you can go ahead and scan the QR code on your screen and punch in your email. That will take you to our Substack. We publish every other Thursday right at the market close. We cover US equity markets, fixed income, emerging markets, the housing market, real estate. If you want to stay up to date on the markets, go ahead, scan the QR code on your screen, punch in your email, and you'll be subscribed to our Substack. We'd love to see you over there. All right, that's all I got. Let's go ahead and close up the laptop. We'll go ahead and say hello to everybody in the chat, and we'll start to head all the way down to the West Village tonight. So it's gonna be a long haul, long walk in the cold and the wind. So thank you all for joining, and happy Friday. All right, let's see what we got. Plaza Hotel looks good. You can kind of see the two flagpoles at the top. Kind of gives you a little bit of a gauge just how windy it is. Behind us we have 432 Park Avenue. This is the Harry Mackellau building, one of my favorite buildings in the city. And we are right outside of the GM building. Photos says I can't scan. What's the email? If you can't scan the QR code, you could type !news, N-E-W-S, in the chat, and the Nightbot will drop the link to our Substack, where you can subscribe there through the link. So I see Lynn is here. What's going on? Connie Ruiz, TRG. This is how's everybody doing tonight? Good to see you. I'm doing good. So, you know, today was a really good day. I put in 2 offers for clients on 2 different properties, so fingers crossed we'll be able to get deals done. You know, I've been running around like crazy in this city, and I was talking, but just there's not a lot of deals that are coming to fruition to close. 2 things are really happening. Number one, it's very difficult to get financing, and even if people do qualify for financing, they're not super enthusiastic about paying, you know, 6.5% money. They would rather pay cash, but then they don't want to liquidate their assets. So that's number one. Number two is you're kind of a little bit far apart on valuation. So what we think a property is worth and what a seller thinks the property is worth, we're still a little bit too far apart. So we gotta, you know, kind of bridge that gap. So the market's pretty much at like a little stalemate here. It's interesting. Deja Vu is here, my friend, the one and only, the ABX girl from the Bronx. Always a pleasure to have you here. Joe Kansas, Joe Driver, JC, what's up? Bitcoin is still holding strong above 50,000. I think we're gonna roll over, maybe test the 50-day at once. We'll see. Daniel G from Buenos Aires, Argentina. What's up, Daniel? Thanks for joining us on 5th Avenue tonight. Joseph Hardaway, Sarah is here. GGNYC, Gidat says share buybacks is reducing available volume. I don't know about that. What do you mean available volume? You're talking about, maybe you mean share buybacks are reducing the overall float of outstanding shares in the market, perhaps? Because one of the things share repurchase programs do, and this is a little bit controversial on Wall Street, that's actually why a lot of politicians and regulators have been clamping down on share buybacks and actually wanting to tax them, is because in general, right, when a company uses its money on its balance sheet to buy back its own stock, one of the things that happens is it reduces the overall amount of shares in the market, thus increasing the company's earnings per share, or EPS, which is a highly watched metric on the street. Speaking of politicians trying to increase taxes, one of the politicians known as Elizabeth Warren has been very vocal, coming out against share repurchase programs. So as of January 1, all new share repurchase programs will be subject to a 1% excise tax. Now, many economists and many analysts on Wall Street predicted that this would cause a really grinding halt, if you will, to new share repurchase programs being launched on the street. And that really didn't happen, by the way. You know, we're still setting records in terms of corporations deciding to purchase their own stock. So I don't know, but they will be subject to that 1% excise tax. I believe that started the first of the year. Anyway, hey, NAV 407, what's going on? Dogtown Yankee This is watching with friends in West Virginia. Love the streams. Good to see you, Dogtown Yankee. Hopefully you'll be able to come up and see a Yankee game this spring. Frank T says, also, I wonder if you help/guide with pre-approval for internationals. I am from Iceland. So I would personally not do that, Frank, but I could recommend you to some of our lenders, our preferred lenders. We also work with some really great wealth management teams in New York City. There's actually a really good team we work with. If you need help, purchasing a property here in New York City, obviously I'd be more than happy to help you. And we have a great team of resources, right, that we could refer you to. One of which being the Powers Group at UBS. They've been really helpful in strategizing and coming up with creative solutions for our clients. RPT, this is happy Friday evening. Good to see you. What's going on? Let's actually wait here for a moment. We'll look at the Bergdorf Goodman. But yeah, I think since existing home sales numbers came out on our way to the West Village, we have people in the chat from all over the country, all over the world. Kind of what's the market looking like in your neck of the woods? Are things still flying off the shelves? Has the bidding war situation kind of come to a conclusion? And do you see discounts, right? Are you seeing opportunities in the distressed asset market? What are you guys seeing? Davis Brewer says, good evening, Tom. I will be visiting soon. There is a late evening flight from Indianapolis. Oh, wow, $30? Huh. Cool. Awesome. Patricia has just tuned in from Michigan. What's going on? Hang with Mark Mom says, Tom, first time buyers fear closing. In this economy, they remain renters and are your age or younger. I encourage my son to buy at 21 right after undergrad, and he has never regretted buying his first home. Yeah, and another thing, I think you're totally spot on, by the way. Hang with Mark Mom. I think you are absolutely spot on. The problem is, one of the things I've been noticing in New York City, right? Just talking about the localized market here. Many first-time home buyers that are under the age of 35, almost all of them, right? Almost every single buyer that I've come across that's first-time home buyer under the age of 35 has some sort of financial assistance from relatives and family, which is totally fine. I hope to be able to do that one day for my kids. But a lot of people don't have that. So what I fear is we're kind of creating a renter nation, so to speak, because if you don't have any support, right, or you're kind of first generation, you get a job in New York, it's really hard to be able to afford to own your own place here. Sometimes studio apartments, depending on the neighborhood you're in, the building you're in, could go for over $500,000 for a studio, right, and upwards of like $980,000 for a studio. It really depends. So it's interesting for sure. Danielle says, do you find cash buyers are having difficulty withdrawing larger amounts of money from banks? No, I don't. Yeah, no, not at all. An interesting thing about cash buyers, though, this is a really cool shot, guys. Look at that. You have Trump Tower right here, 432 Park, the GM building, and the Sherry Netherland right there. That's awesome. I will say that the only two deals that I've done in terms of working with buyers, they've all been cash deals. So the deals that are getting done, and this is localized to the New York market, I'm broadly talking about New York City. There's been a lot of cash deals this year, right, and last year. A lion's share of the deals have been cash, which, by the way, it makes life a lot easier on me, right, as the agent, because the deals are very seamless. You don't really need to wait for financing to get teed up. Closing can happen very quickly. If you make a solid offer that's all cash, you get the inspection done, you do the walkthroughs, sometimes you could have a 30-day close, which is really, really great. A lot of times, depending on the situation, financing can kind of hold up the deal. But all right, we're gonna walk down Central Park South until 6th Avenue, or Avenue of the Americas. Once again, just a quick reminder, this is 1 Central Park South. So this is the Plaza Hotel Residences. So if you're staying at the Plaza, you go around the other end. If you live here, or you rent an apartment here, you stay right here, which is cool. Popo says, baby boomers have to sell their larger homes, time to move in. That's another thing. Boomers are not really selling their homes. There's pretty much no good inventory on the market. So there needs to be some sort of catalyst to incentivize people to sell. Hang with Mark Moms this time. For first-time buyers, all they need is 3% down and find a low cost of living state. Oh, for sure, yeah. It's just hard, you know, again, talking about the localized market here in New York City, you know, particularly if you're buying in a co-op, it's not gonna fly. If you only have 3% down, you know, a lot of these co-op buildings that I deal with, some of them require 50%. So, you know, think about that. If it's, you know, if it's a $10 million co-op, 50% down, you need $5 million bucks. But yeah, I totally understand what you're saying. Also, you know, I think Hang with Mark Mom was talking about, you know, house hacking too. That's how I got my start in real estate. I purchased a property in South Florida and started to rent out the individual rooms. That's another really good way to do it too. Frank T says, do you handle regular condos or just luxury? Our team really specializes in the higher end luxury market. Like, that's kind of our wheelhouse, but we do help and assist at all price points. But our specialty, our expertise, our relationships with these developers generally tends to be at the higher end, but we'll help anybody, right? That's just, if you look at our, you know, notable transactions or recent transactions, most of them have been at the higher end, but we absolutely will not turn away any business. Let's say that. So if you need any help, definitely send me an email and we could help you out. Look at this Vespa. Pretty cool. Wow, ABX Girl says Raleigh, Durham are now officially unaffordable. A lot of people have been moving to the Carolinas, which is quite surprising. ABX Girl says, Tom, I know many New Yorkers who never bought. They hit the apartment lottery and stayed put. That's true. I mean, I know of some crazy stories here in the city where people are paying like $500 in a rent stabilized apartment. All types of crazy stuff, right? Somebody says, what do you think about target date funds? Well, target date funds, they're mainly in like company 401k plans and things like that. It's Carlton Hotel to the left. But chances are, if you work for a big company, right, like I did, I worked for a big company, big telecom company, you would get a 401k plan. You know, you sit down with the HR person, you could set it up, and oftentimes they'll have what's called a target date fund, which essentially is based upon your age or your retirement age or the date. The portfolio shifts allocation based upon your risk profile. So generally speaking, if you're very, very far away from retirement, let's say, you know, you're 28 years old like me, you're very, very far away from retirement. Well, chances are in your target date fund, it would be very, very highly skewed towards equities, right? Maybe you even have 90% equities in your target date fund and 10% fixed income or bonds. The closer you get to retirement, chances are, now this is generally speaking here, the closer you get to retirement, you'd probably have a higher allocation to fixed income, right, bonds, than you would to equities to try to dampen some of that volatility because you're closer to retirement. Now, the only thing that I would say, and I can't give out financial advice, I'm not an advisor, I'm not licensed or registered, anything, but the only thing I would say is this, okay? It's very critical, and it's very important, particularly if you are nearing the age of retirement, to go back and do an audit of all of the mutual funds, the target date funds that's in your portfolios. Because the reason for that is, chances are if you're closing in on retirement age, you've had these target date funds and you had the money in these funds for a very long time, and you're probably paying really high fees. I like to say you shouldn't be paying more than a 1% management fee on anything anymore. Okay, it's 2024. It's not the 1980s where if you wanted to buy a mutual fund, they would charge you 5% on the front end, and if you wanted to sell it, they'd charge you 5% on the back end, and you'd pay 200 basis points a year to underperform the market, right? But it's not those times anymore. So I would just go, whoever your custodian is for the 401k, if it's Vanguard, State Street, Fidelity, I would go in or call whoever, right, at HR, and say, what are our annualized fees in our 401k? And I think if it's over 2%, you gotta do something about that, because I think that's unacceptable. Hey Frank, what's up? So say everybody, good to see Frank. We're kind of gonna walk in an L shape tonight. So we walk down Central Park South, we banged a left on 6th Avenue. This is West 58th Street, and we were gonna crush all the way down past Radio City Music Hall, past, what's it called? Herald Square, and we're gonna go to the West Village, which I'm really excited about because I like the West Village a lot, particularly on the weekends. It's a really fun place to be. There's a lot of nightlife over there. There's a lot of bars, restaurants. It's a fun time over there. Now this is Billionaires Row. You see Central Park Tower 157 and the Steinway Tower. This is the skinniest residential apartment building in the entire world. Hey, Michelle K, what's up? Hang with Mark Mom. This is my thought process is always act like you're 10 years away from retirement. You'll be amazed how much you can save within that time frame. Some jobs are very stressful but pay well, so save up now. That's a really interesting way to look at it. I kind of like that analogy. It kind of creates that sense of urgency. It's pretty cool. J49, what's up? I wonder what's going on with this 57th Street train station. Yeah, this used to be the F train down here. I think I've actually taken you guys down here multiple times. This used to be the F. Now it is the M train. Carol S. says, hey Tom, what's up? 3T3 says, I'm so happy my company allows self-directed investing. It takes discipline, but my returns are better. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's good stuff. Okay, let's cross southbound here. Philly West says, what are your thoughts on 175 Park? I'm not too sure I'm familiar with that building. What is 175 Park? I'm not too sure I'm familiar. TRG says they flooded again 57th Street. As usual stuff is flooding. I don't know about that. I think they're just changing up the tracks. Joe E, what's up? Good to see you, Joe. Now, the only sort of real catalyst that I could think of that'll probably, and I don't even know if this is going to be, a catalyst to force people to sell, because one of the things that I'm seeing is people own a lot of assets, but they don't necessarily have tons of liquidity, is what I've noticed. Just from kind of deals that I'm working, people I know, they have a lot of their net worth tied up into what you could call hard assets, right? That's very difficult to get that liquidity, change over into cash, right? That's essentially what liquidity means. How fast can it be converted into cash? So the more liquid the asset is, the faster it can be converted into cash. There's people out there that own millions and millions of dollars worth of real estate, but it's all illiquid, right? So if you want to have access to that liquidity, you need to sell. And right now, people are very reluctant to sell because the market, if you say, okay, if I sell now, I'll just have to go right back into the market and try to buy something when there's not a lot of inventory, not a lot of quality product. So if they do see something that they like, they're trying to either get some sort of bridge loans on their current mortgages, they're trying to lend against their assets or their mutual funds that they don't want to sell, right? Because the market's performing well. So it's definitely an interesting time, for sure. Oh, Philly West has approved skyscraper 1575. Oh, 1,575 feet tall next to Grand Central Station. Oh, Philly West, is that going to be next to the, or is that going to be the tower that's the current Grand Hyatt Hotel right next to Grand Central Station? Is that one? Interesting. I know there's been a lot of talk about that specific plot of land, because apparently if that building goes up, it'll obstruct the view of the Chrysler building. Interesting. Hey, Victor C. This is Tom. Very interesting channel. Appreciate that, Victor. Thanks so much. Michelle just says checking in from Michigan. Good to see you, Michelle. You can now see Radio City Music Hall. We are standing across the street from the Hilton Flagship Hotel.
Because I think it's down there.
What's up, Ethan R? Thanks for joining. Combat Jones, Tom, what are your thoughts on Google's new great AI tool, Gemini? So there's been a lot of controversy with Gemini lately. I know one of the things that Google is trying to do is incorporate their Gemini product in with Google Cloud and sell it on a subscription basis, right? So to my understanding, it'll be like a SaaS add-on, like a software as a service subscription to Google Cloud customers. I think that's how they're going to market that, to try to monetize AI, right? And really be a competitor with, some of the other AI tools out there. But I mean, apparently, and I try not to get political, but apparently there's a lot of backlash at the Google team because there's many claims out there that the Gemini AI is quote unquote woke. Not my terms, not my words, but this is kind of what has been going on in the media. So much so to where the Alphabet, as the whole company, right? They had many subsidiaries. They had to address this. And this has been one of the concerns with artificial intelligence and machine learning and the like, right? Because AI has to be trained, and the input data could potentially be quite biased. So that's kind of been one of the headlines in the news lately, is Gemini's, or Google's AI product Gemini potentially being a little bit biased. This is Charles Schwab. I've increasingly found myself using ChatGPT more often. I figured I went through a little bit of a cycle here. At first I was a little bit dismissive, and then I'm like, yeah, I probably shouldn't be dismissive here. I probably should look into this and do a little bit more digging. And now one of the things that I've kind of found myself doing, and I'd be very, very curious to see if anybody else here in the chat has seen a similar pattern, okay? Usually, I always have Google up and I just, type anything into Google that I need. I've increasingly found myself shifting my, web browsing habits to just using ChatGPT as my Google search, so to speak. And as I think about the business, right, Google as a business, Google has a very, very wide and large moat in its search business, right? Nobody really uses Bing, nobody really uses Yahoo. Dogpile is another one that nobody uses. Everybody uses Google. If you want to figure something out, you got to Google it. Yeah. Looking out 10 years, I think this could be a potential big risk to Google's search business, potentially. I think it's important to keep our eyes on it, because what if down the line, instead of everybody Googling things, they could just have an AI chatbot, such as ChatGPT, and use ChatGPT and other AI tools to answer all their inquiry, right? How are you going to use that for monetization? Is that a potential risk to Google's search business? I think so, and I think that's why Google's making this big push towards, having a traditional AI product for themselves. John Sunderland says Google search is better than Bing. I definitely agree with that. This is a cool shot of Radio City Music Hall, everybody. Look at that. Gopher Hokies, Mel J is here. Hey, Fahim says, Tom, ChatGPT has been very useful to write up notes. Combat Jones says, ChatGPT is great for research on big topics I don't understand. For a broad overview, I agree. NAV407 says, the input data can be biased. It isn't really AI by definition. Maybe like a large language model. Vinny says, I use ChatGPT every day. The search is in knowing the prompts. Double Eagles, sounds like Google needs to look into its quality controls. To let something so biased be released begs a lot of questions. Yeah, I mean, look, I think an overwhelming majority of these AI tools will be used for good and improve people's lives. I mean, it's already, increased my productivity. So I think the big question is, and for everybody who has not gotten a chance to watch the brand new podcast, the Lex Friedman podcast with Bill Ackman, I would really take some time this weekend. It's a long podcast. It's almost 3 hours. It's crazy. But I would really take some time this weekend to sit down and review that podcast. There's so much good information in there about how to evaluate businesses, how to identify very strong and large moats. And that was one of the specific things that Ackman actually brought up and talked about on the show, is the threat that AI has on a lot of these cushy cash cow business models like Google search. And I think that a lot of these companies, these big tech companies, have had these massive wide moats around their businesses for so long that they've kind of gotten a little bit lackadaisical, where some of these other new coming and up and coming players, particularly in the AI space, right, could potentially come and eat their lunch over the next few years. Now, for lack of a better term, the good news is these big tech companies are so rich with cash that they could probably just buy out their competition. And a lot of their subsidiaries are, like DeepMind, for example, things like that. Sharon says, evening, Tom. Hope you're having a great Friday. I appreciate that. Yeah, Friday's going great. Looking forward to the weekend. the Rainbow Room at Rockefeller Center. And you can see the spire of St. Patrick's Cathedral. But if you're all enjoying the live stream so far tonight, feel free to leave a like on the video and click the subscribe button if you're new. We do these streams almost every night starting at 8:30. This is 50 West 50th Street, one of the main entrances to Rockefeller Center. Hey, we have Joel PM here. This is when you hear talk of companies using AI agents to run on top of other software solutions, they are doing so in hopes of replacing people. Agreed. Oh wow, Go for Hokies says, Tom, we are using it already a lot in the hospitality industry. Let me read that comment, it's interesting. It is really nice when a guest... Oh wow, so you have ChatGPT answering the guest's inquiry. Very interesting. Double Eagle says, I'm not too sure that the benefits outweigh the harm at this point for AI. So I'm a little bit on the fence too, but if we use history as our guide, right, I think it's very important when you're analyzing massive technological trends, you kind of use history as a guide as we come up here to the main area of Rockefeller Center. Because what Elon Musk's Neuralink company has successfully implanted the first chip in their patient. So somebody right now that's living, breathing, and walking this earth has a Neuralink chip implanted in their head, and it's going well, right? They've made almost a full recovery, and they're healthy and they're safe. So you can kind of, on one hand, weigh the dystopian side of that, but on the other hand, you could look on the bright side of it and say, well, technologies like that could potentially cure blindness. They could make people that are paralyzed walk again. You know, if you're deaf or mute, they could quite literally cure those conditions. So I think from that side, again, going to the default of you have to kind of lean in to technology and have an optimistic outlook. Again, if history is our guide, a lot of things were a little bit scary, right? Nobody thought everybody was going to walk around with a smartphone. Now, you know, you're seen as kind of like the odd one out if you don't have a smartphone. You know, we're more connected now than ever before. If you took somebody from 1940, right, and you dropped them in 2024, it would probably be like a sensory overload for them. They couldn't like understand that this is a reality. So I believe the same thing is going to be true in the next 50 years. Yeah, JC says AI will soon figure out who Satoshi Nakamoto was. I don't know if that's a good thing though, JC. I was thinking about that. I think for the sake of Bitcoin, it's important that we don't know who that is, in my view. I think it's important that nobody knows who it is, in my view. And I think if we do find out who it is, and I think if we find out that that person is still alive, I think that's a double negative. But I have my thoughts on who I think the creator of Bitcoin is. I'll bite my tongue on that. Maybe I'll disclose what I think one day, but not tonight. Hey, Santi, what's up? Says, hey Tom, I made it. Happy to talk and walk with you tonight. Thanks so much. Appreciate it. Now, what is everybody's thoughts? I mean, not to make the whole world about, not to make the whole, oh, no way. Hang with Mark Mom says Satoshi was one of my tenants' first names. Maybe the creator of Bitcoin was your tenant. Anyway, it's so funny. Brian M. Halfin, maybe, but I actually think it's somebody else. Yeah, I think it was a close companion of his, maybe. I don't know. I'm just speculating. All right, let's get back on 6th Avenue and let's be steadfast all the way down to the West Village. We're right across the street from News Corporation. They own Fox News, Wall Street Journal, Barron's, and now Investors Business Daily, just to the right of us. Now, just quickly speaking, I'll just say one more piece about Bitcoin. Did anybody see the European Central Bank come out and make a statement about Bitcoin, how it's a failed project? Right, paraphrasing, but I believe it was the ECB came out and said that, you know, Bitcoin has failed to be a great medium of exchange. Now, I think that's the best news for Bitcoin in the last 5 years. Okay, that's an exaggeration. In the last, couple months. If you have any central bank of any point come out and making a statement about how Bitcoin is a failed project, you should take that as a screaming, like, pound the table endorsement for Bitcoin. In my view, that's my opinion. Doesn't mean I'm right, but again, if you have the ECB, if you have Christine Lagarde coming out, or any of the other central banks around the world globally, saying, hey, listen, Bitcoin is a failed project, it's no good, probably shouldn't pay much attention to it. Your frame should be, it's probably really good, and you should probably focus more of your attention on it. That should be the frame, at least in my view. Okay, we are now crossing the Diamond District, southbound. This is West 46th Street. You're gonna see Bank of America Tower, Brian Moynihan's company. And we are also going to pass by D.E. Shaw, which is a quantitative-based hedge fund where Jeff Bezos used to work. Now, way back in the good old days, this used to be my office. I used to sit right in this little window here, right there. This is a great place to work, especially if you're young, working right in Midtown Manhattan. There's no place to be like New York City. And I really do mean that, by the way. Even though you see a lot of this negativity in the news about, you know, the politics and the craziness about New York, and people, you know, advising to stay away, I think especially if you are young in your career, there's really no other place to be than New York City. There's a lot of opportunity here. I mean, the people that you'll meet just from networking with is worth its weight in gold in and of itself. So I would still give advice to younger people to say, look, if you graduate in college and you're watching the news and the media and they're telling you not to go to New York City because of all the craziness that's going on, you should probably take the other side of that trade. And this is when you should start to build something in New York, because, you know, that's kind of like investing 101. When there's blood in the water and when there's fear, that's when you should be getting involved. And I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity here. I think there'll continue to be opportunity here. And I think you want to be a part of that in a big way. John Sunderland. So that used to be the headquarters, the New York City headquarters of Sprint/SoftBank. So SoftBank made a very large investment into Sprint. Now Sprint it doesn't exist anymore. In the United States, we used to have a big phone company called Sprint, and they had a very big wireline business. And Masayoshi Son, wow, look at how crazy this shot is here with the full moon and one Vanderbilt. But Masa-san, I believe, bought a 70% stake, or a very high stake in Sprint. They also had a very large stake in a company called WeWork. If anybody remembers that company, I mean, it's still around. It's going to go through bankruptcy, or it filed for bankruptcy rather. But right there, the second floor of 1166 Avenue of the Americas, I think they're still there. They had an entire WeWork themed Sprint office, and it was an unbelievable office, like state of the art. Everything is brand new. It was like the best WeWork office you've ever been on steroids. It was so cool. And that's where I used to work. And I actually saw Adam Newman a couple times in there. Really enjoyable place to work. I actually stayed through the merger, so I'm sure many of you in here have worked for a big company and have gone through a merger. It's not fun. It's very stressful. And now you have T-Mobile, which I think is very well positioned, by the way. And I've said this multiple times. I think T-Mobile is in the best position in the US to build out a true 5G network, because what was so lucrative to T-Mobile about this merger is they acquired so much of that mid-band spectrum from Sprint. The problem is Sprint was in such a bad financial situation, they really couldn't use that spectrum resources to their advantage because it cost so much money to deploy. But I think T-Mobile's really well positioned. I think T-Mobile's a really well-run company. That was back in the day when you had John Legere. Anybody familiar with the former CEO of T-Mobile? John Legere. He's a little bit of a character, that guy, but he is a great CEO, I think. All right, let me pull off to the side here just to give you a better look at Bank of America Tower. A lot of pedestrians out tonight, you could see, coming from Times Square, probably coming from all the shows. Yeah, Gopher Hokies love T-Mobile, great customer service. They are extremely customer focused, T-Mobile. The only thing I'd say, because I worked on the corporate side, The only thing I'd say is they have to start to build out better infrastructure to work with a lot of the other TEMs, the telecom expense managers. So like from portal management and things like that. If they really want to break into the enterprise space, servicing Fortune 500, Fortune 50, Global 2000, they really have to, build out a more robust enterprise business, which I think will come in due time. I have nothing but good things to say about the team over there. Okay, this is Bank of America Tower. You can actually see a little bit of their trading floor if we go a little bit further over here. And they also have a great view of the Empire State Building as well. But if you guys are enjoying the live stream so far tonight, feel free to leave a like on the video and click the subscribe button if you're new. We do these live streams every single day starting at 8:30. Phil is here, says, hey Tom. Truth Teller says, I've had T-Mobile for 10 years, no complaints. Network just needs to get a little bit faster. I think that's going to be coming in due time, I think. Jonathan from Florida says, hey, Tom and team. Oops, I lost your comment. My chat's acting up today. Wow, Joel PM says, I've been through one merger, one bankruptcy. Prefer the former to the latter. Yeah. Hey, Rich says, have you heard about New York City businesses wishing to change their offices to other states or real estate sales or lease to decrease? I mean, you've had, I would say yes and no, right? You always have that outflow of businesses moving to business-friendlier states and business-friendlier cities, particularly in states like Texas and Florida. But I think that's always been a thing. I don't think it's a new and emerging trend. Maybe the trend was a little bit exacerbated by the pandemic, for sure. You're starting to see a lot of companies go down to the state of Florida, particularly in and around the Miami-Dade, Fort Lauderdale kind of area. But yeah, generally speaking. However, you'll always have a very strong corporate foothold in New York City, in my view. I don't think that'll ever change. Because you really also have to understand what's very important to businesses is kind of like the feeder pool to the talent pool, right? That's why, despite all of the craziness in the San Francisco Bay Area, corporations continue to stay there, and startups, really, I would say particularly startups, continue to flock and choose the San Francisco Bay Area to create their businesses and startups, is because you have a very robust talent pool there, right? You could say the same thing about the East Coast of the United States, pretty much. You have a lot of the Ivy League schools in very close proximity to major cities like New York City, Boston, and the like. So New York City, you have Columbia University, you have NYU, you have Cornell, all in the same state, which are some of the top universities in the country that provide a really nice on-ramp for recruiting for a lot of these companies. So in my view, and this is the ball that they drop on New Year's Eve at 1 Times Square. This is the H&M building as well. In my view, if any of these major cities like Miami, Austin, Texas, and the like, and for full disclosure, I own property in Miami, Florida, so I'm very long, right? Expressed my viewpoint that way. I'm very long the city of Miami. But I think if you want to have a sustained trend of business growth, of job growth in a lot of those cities, they're gonna need to invest a ton of money into education infrastructure, particularly local public schools, private schools down there, and universities, right? Because all of that education infrastructure acts as a funnel so to speak, coming from a sales background. It kind of acts as a funnel into those great companies. Let's go into Bryant Park actually a little bit. I don't know. I mean, what do you guys think? Do you think that's a pretty good analysis? Do you agree with that? Do you disagree with that? Do you think New York City is going to be left by the wayside and all the talent's going to move elsewhere? I mean, what are your thoughts on that as we look at this insane view from Bryant Park? Yeah, hang with Mark Moms, as there's a Cornell Club in New York City for alumni. Yeah, every time my brother comes to New York City, he goes to the Cornell Club. Oh, Two Irons is great walk and talk. Walk by Sparks Steakhouse on East 46th Street. Yeah, Sparks Steakhouse is really great. However, my favorite steakhouse in Manhattan, and it's not necessarily the best steak, by the way, it's not necessarily the best food, but I think it's the best experience. It's a really, really good time. We passed it not too long ago on Avenue of the Americas. Del Frisco's. I really enjoy going to Del Frisco's, particularly if it's a business meeting or an event, something like that. I've closed a lot of deals at Del Frisco's. It's just a really good time. Not necessarily the best steak you're gonna get. I mean, it's good, but it's just an overall good time. I really like Del Frisco's. But yeah, Sparks Steakhouse is very good too. I enjoy it. Got a lot of people ice skating here. Hey, Jeff in Southern Tier, New York. What's up, Jeff? Always a pleasure to have you. Hey, Joel says my job is giving me $4,700 for rent or mortgage aside from my salary. Holy crap, that's awesome. Could I get your job? That's an amazing perk. $4,700. That's awesome, dude. Congratulations on your success. That's an amazing perk. $4,700 towards rent or a mortgage. I'd buy something with that. I'd buy like a little duplex or a triplex, and I'd live on one side and rent out the others. That's an awesome, awesome perk. I think the best company perk I've ever had was way back when I used to work at AT&T. When I worked at AT&T, they offered me tuition reimbursement, so they paid for a lot of my schooling. And when I got the job, I kind of wish that I went to a more expensive school, because the school I went to was like, you know, $2,000 a year. It was right here in New York City, but yeah, I would say if you work at a large corporation that will sponsor you to get like a master's degree or an MBA, I would totally do that, right? So if you're interested in getting an MBA, I would say absolutely do it, but go work for a company that is very, very big, and 9 times out of 10, they'll pay for your education through tuition reimbursement. Particularly if you work in consulting or investment banking, even in tech, you just have to contact your HR department too. And oftentimes, you know, and I've actually done this before, if you go to your HR department and you pitch your company and say, hey, you know, I'm, let's just say, for example, you're a software engineer, and you say, I really want to take this course at Syracuse University, at Cornell University, at Columbia University, whatever, right? Because I think it's going to impact my job performance. I think it's going to make me a lot more efficient at my job. It's going to increase my productivity. It's going to cost $10,000. I'm willing to pay for it, but my request is that you would reimburse me on that, because it has a direct correlation with my performance in my job. And I think you'd be surprised. A lot of companies will offer those tuition reimbursement programs, assuming you get a good grade in the class, right? So if you go back to school and you want to study something new, I think it's a really good idea if you could have your corporation pay for it. You may have to front the money at first, but chances are they could reimburse you for that. So Justin says, Tom, what did you major in? I majored in criminal justice and economics. Criminal justice and economics. Hey, Techno Pink. Speaking of consulting, we have Techno Pink in the chat. Our good friend over at EY. You guys are at Hudson Yards now, I think, right? Now, if you guys go to the Bryant Park camera, you can probably see me right now. Gidat says, get NBA part-time with company sponsor. Love that. Go for Hokies says, Tom, I worked at Home Depot during college and I used their tuition reimbursement program and I got about $13,000 back. That's awesome. That's good stuff.
At this time, we will resurface the ice. All skaters must carefully leave the ice, gather their belongings, and exit.
Oh, John says, Tom, I got my degree in econ from George Mason University.
Thank you for skating at
Very impressive. Love that.
Village at Bryant Park.
Swear Works says, I couldn't do the McKinsey thing they offered. I had to start my own thing. Yeah, I mean, I've never worked in consulting, but I hear it's very long hours. However, the exit opportunities are quite nice. I think that's the perk, right? If you can rough it out in consulting, like working at McKinsey, Deloitte, EY, or even if you just do the investment banking grind for 2 or 3 years, your exit opportunities are really good. You know, you could pretty much take your pick and work wherever you want, or start your own business and raise money and you know, take an entrepreneurial route. You could work in VC. There's good exit opportunities to private equity. So, yeah, I think it's worth it for sure. Yeah, I think they're closing the park. You got all these sirens blowing off all over the place. We'll exit and then let's head down to the West Village. Blue 72, what's up? Good to see you. Dinesh says, do companies in Manhattan take part in work permits for international individuals? Yeah, it really all depends on the company. And it also depends on what type of visa you're on. I have a lot of friends who first get their foot in the door working in the United States through a J1 visa, which is kind of like an intern visa. So you can come here to the United States. I believe, I'm not too sure how long the duration is. You're gonna have to, and I'm not an attorney or anything, you know, so don't take this as advice. I am not well versed in this. I'm just telling you from my experience dealing with friends and things like that. Maybe try to get a J1 visa, which I think is a student's visa. You can get an internship, you could work at a company. And if you do a good job, you could ask them to sponsor you for your H-1B visa, which is great. Now, if the company sponsors you, Dinesh, for the H-1B visa, it's a lottery system, unfortunately. So even though your company sponsors you, that doesn't automatically mean you get it. Some of my friends, it took them 3 years to get selected in the H-1B lottery. And we were talking about this the other stream. There's a new data point out that there's more H-1B applicants, H-1B visa applicants now in 2024 than at any point in American history. So there's more talented, smart, and capable soon-to-be immigrants wanting to come and work in the United States than ever before. So it's very, very competitive, unfortunately. So I would try that route. You know, try to get an internship somewhere and have them sponsor you for an H-1B visa. Techno Pink says all visas have different requirements and don't allow you to do the same thing in the US. The work visa is not a short process. Yeah, it's very, very laborious. The immigration system in the United States, if you really dig into it and know people who've gone through it, it is so backwards. It is so like laborious. It's just a horrible situation. It's terrible. Anyway. Hey, Dan Sang. This is Tom. My friend graduated from MIT and now works at Google and is still having trouble with the visas. Yeah, it's nuts. It's crazy, right? Go for Hokies, says Tom. You said you played hockey. I did play hockey, and I couldn't tell you what position I played because I was too young at the time. But I did play. I played probably up until maybe like 13 years old. Not good at it at all, though. But all right, we're making okay time here. Ethan R. says, Tom, not to get political, but do you think the migrant crisis actually has an impact on everyday life in New York City? Is it noticeable there? Again, not being political. No, I think it's a good question. Yes, it does impact everyday life. And it's heartbreaking to see because you have this bifurcated narrative here with the migrant situation, okay? And look, I feel for these people. And that's why, you know, it's kind of like a reinforcing thing why I'm so blessed and I'm so thankful. And I really do mean this, by the way, like sincerely. Like, if you were born in the United States of America, you essentially hit the lottery, okay? You know, it's just the chances alone just to be able to be born here and to have the opportunity to do whatever you want freely when the vast majority of the world's population was born into, you know, circumstances a lot worse off than ours, and they're trying and struggling so hard to, you know, just to be able to participate in this great experience that we call the US of A. You kind of feel for these people because on the subways, and I've been taking the subway a lot, you know, you have these, you know, very, very young migrant women, by the way, that have their babies strapped to their backs, and they just don't look well, and they're, you know, begging for money, you know, they're selling you little chocolates, and there's so many. Like, that's the thing, it's just, there's so many. You can't walk onto a subway car, at least in my experience, and I take the 6 train, I'm on the subways all day, doing showings, appointments. You can't step on a subway car right now in New York City without having, you know, someone that's usually, you know, from that sort of migrant populace, you know, selling little candies and, you know, have their children literally strapped and slung to their backs. It's so, like, heartbreaking, right? Because they're out in these conditions. And you've also had migrants that are here to take advantage of the situation. But you also have migrants that are here for a better life, right? Just like everybody else is. So I think it's a political mess that we've created and made life harder for a lot of these migrants. Because the thing is, we've promised them. So I actually don't blame the migrants, by the way. I blame our political ruling class on both sides of the aisle. Because if you send a message that you can come here, okay, and we're going to give you free housing, we're going to put you up, we're going to give you all this free stuff, I would go too if I was in Venezuela starving. Like, you kidding me? I'd be on the first trip to the United States. And keep in mind, these people are traveling thousands of miles, guys. You know, exposed in the elements, going through, you know, cartel infested territory. It's a dangerous journey. You know, crossing the river with their little infant babies. So it's a you know, long story short, yes, it does impact everyday life here in New York. But again, with anything, you have a set of migrants that are here for a better life and that are escaping, you know, tyrannical governments and, you know, scumbag cartels. And then you have others that are trying to cause trouble, take advantage of the situation. So I guess the only frame that I could put on it is, if you just had the luxury of being born here, you've done nothing to come here, you've done nothing to kind of pull yourself up by the bootstraps and come to America, you was born here like I was, you need to seize that opportunity and really stop bitching about it and just get to work and make something of it. And I really mean that sincerely, because you have people that are traveling thousands of miles on foot, you know, sleeping on the streets in New York City, you know, waiting to get a little shelter room. It's so I think if you were born here, you know, don't complain, because there's people traveling thousands of miles with their little kids, for you to sit and complain about the country. And it's an interesting perspective, because I deal with like so many different people at work. You know, I deal with people, I'm actually dealing with a client right now. The parents are paying $15,000 for their daughter to live in an apartment in Tribeca. And I guess I won't disclose too much, but yeah, it's like these people don't like America. And I'm like, dude, you're in this penthouse in Tribeca, you're freaking 23 years old, your daddy's bankrolling 15 grand a month. I'm like, you should be on bended knee thanking God you're here. You know, it's like, it's just insane. But it's perspective, right? You gotta have perspective. Like, look at this guy. He's busting his balls, you know, working his ass off, selling, I don't even know what that guy was selling. So anyway, it's kind of like when you have it too good, you don't know how bad other people have it. So you need to keep things in perspective. And again, if you were born and raised in the United States, I would just be thankful I'm here, put my nose to the grindstone and create something, do something, be positive, try to make it better for other people so that they have the same opportunity that you have. That's really about it. That's really all I have to say about it. All right, we are now at Herald Square. Macy's. Oh, look at that. You have that beautiful full moon right here. Almost literally touching the spire of the Empire State Building. That's crazy. Look at that. Hey, John G. What's up, John? Jonathan says, you're so damn right, Tom. I would do anything to be born in the U.S. Gary, what's up? Good to see you. No, yeah, and I'm skimming through the comments. I think the point I'm trying to make is, I think the whole migrant situation is so bad because it's been politicized, right? The Democrats took it way too far and said, oh, you know, you're anti-migrant if you don't want to just give everybody free stuff and open the floodgates, right? Which is obviously irrational and ridiculous, right? We want to have as much legal immigration into the United States as possible. Just do it in an organized fashion. But if you don't, you're going to create chaos, and that's what we're in now. In New York City, it's chaos. Even our mayor, who is a Democrat, says, guys, this is too much. We can't house all of these people. There's just too many people here. Okay? We can't even, we have a homelessness crisis even before the migrant situation. You know, we have homeless veterans. We have, you know, so many of our own problems in the U.S. Why don't we allocate resources to take care of our own first? Which I agree with, right? So, again, it's just a government, the government sucks, just like as always in the U.S. You know, that's what it is. Things just get too politicized. People just want to look good. Egos fly. And yeah. Hey, Mark Francis, thank you so much for your $20 donation. I appreciate your support. Thank you so much. And hopefully you have a fantastic weekend. This is the Cell Texas Veterans First. I agree. I totally agree. Ancient One says, hey Tom, it is very true. If anyone is interested, look for the plug of Darien. I'll check it out. Someone says, hey Tom, I enjoy walks on Wall Street, but why always in Midtown? So I try to venture out of Midtown as much as possible, but you'll notice an interesting dichotomy on the live stream. When it's cold out and when the weather's not too good, we always hang around the office. My office is right on 7th Avenue, or my office is right on Madison Avenue. Excuse me, close to Billionaires Row. So when I get out of the office, I do the stream. But during the summer, we tend to venture out into other neighborhoods. But in the winter, I just get lazy. Just gonna be honest, guys, I get lazy in the winter, like many of you, okay? So after working all day, I'm like, I don't wanna take the train and start the live stream in Lower Manhattan. I'm just gonna be lazy and start the live stream right outside the office and walk around Midtown. So, look, when the weather improves, we are gonna be going to the Upper East Side, the Upper West Side, Lower Manhattan. Maybe we'll even go to Queens. But when it's so cold and windy and rainy out, I kind of like to stay local a little bit. So hopefully that answers your question. This is Koreatown, 32nd Street, Korea Way here in New York. Lots of people out tonight. Hey, Sabrina Fair, what's up? Thank you so much. Hey, PL830, what's up? Says, I know it's cold out, so thank you for going to the Village. I love it there. I love the Village too. Village is a fun place. And it's going to be even better in the summer in the Village, in my view. Hey, Elliott Wave Review, what's up? Elliott Wave Review, I want you to email me some of your Elliott Wave analysis on the S&P. I'd like to take a look at some of your stuff. Hold on, let me give you guys a good shot of the Empire before we head down to the Village. This is Koreatown. Look at that. Elliott Wave Review says, Tom, if you could refinance your property in Miami right now and get $300,000 in cash, would you do it and buy a condo? I wouldn't, because I have like a 3% interest rate on my money. So if I refinance my property, my interest rate is going to be much higher than 3%. So no, and I don't really need the liquidity. I mean, thankfully, and I mean, thank God, I'm in a pretty good spot. But down the line, you know, when I go, let's say if I am very, very close to paying off the entire mortgage, right? I'd probably rip the equity out of that property to acquire another one. That's probably what I would do. Just for the tax implications, just because I don't want to sell it and then have to pay taxes on it. But, you know, I mean, Elliott Wave Review, that's a really interesting thing that you brought up, because that's been a kind of a sore spot in earnings for major banks. Is their refinance business has kind of fallen off a cliff, because if you look at the vast majority of loans that have been written over the last decade, I think something crazy like there's over 80% of all outstanding mortgages, 30-year mortgages, have less than 4% interest rates on them. That's kind of wild. So, I mean, what are these people going to refinance into? You know, much higher rates. It's quite interesting. But Swearworks says, I have a super low interest rate too. What would interest rates be today if I bought another property? Well, it depends. Probably right around 6.5%, 7%. However, there are programs with different banks, right? There are programs with different banks where, let's say if you move, you know, $1 million from one bank to the other bank, and then you get a mortgage with that bank, they'll take off like 75 basis points from your mortgage, which is pretty significant, by the way. It's actually really significant. So Wow, amazing days. We are at 2.9%. Whoa, that's really low. You know, and that's another thing as we head to the West Village. All of these individuals in the US who have 3% rates, 2% rates, you know, what is their incentive to sell, right? What is their incentive structure to sell? Z says, aren't T-bills a great short-term investment now? Well, I think if you want the liquidity, and again, this isn't advising on anything, we're just having an open conversation. You know, money markets are still like at 5%, and then you have all the liquidity. So if you have a lot of cash in a brokerage account, you should probably put it in a money market, because 5% interest, at least you're getting a real rate of return, right? I know we all kind of laugh about that, but it's true. You know, CPI came in at what, 3.1%? So if you're making a, 5% interest on your money, you now have a real rate of return. For once. It's crazy. Now, this on 28th Street, I just want to point out this interesting development here. This is the brand new Ritz-Carlton right here. This is an awesome building, has amazing views of the Empire State Building and all of Midtown Manhattan. And it's right on Broadway, and the city has really, really changed Broadway in a big way. They've opened it up, they've put a lot more bike lanes, they've made a lot more space for pedestrians. It's a lot more walkable. As we head down towards the Flatiron Building, you'll really get a better sense and an opportunity to see what I'm talking about here. But more bike lanes, less vehicle traffic. Z. This is our equities better than short-term T-bills. Well, we are in a screaming bull market. And yeah, equities, the return in US stocks have just been phenomenal. I think we're a little extended here, but it's actually good to hopefully get a little bit of a pullback into spring consolidation and maybe a little bit of a sector rotation into some of the smaller caps. And then we really get cranking in the summer. But if you guys are enjoying the live stream so far tonight, feel free to leave a like on the video and click the subscribe button if you're new. And if you're interested in all the topics we talk about here each and every night on the stream, about the financial markets, about the real estate market, about New York City in general, feel free to scan the QR code on your screen and punch in your email, because every other Thursday after the market closes, we send out our free investing newsletter called Behind the Street, where we do full analysis on the US equity markets, emerging markets, fixed income, and the like. And we put a lot of time and effort into it, and it's a great free way to support the stream and stay up to date on the market. So if you haven't signed up already, you can do so for free by scanning the QR code on your screen and punching in your email, and you will have access to our Substack, 24 months of archived research and New York City real estate property tours for free. Now this place is always packed here. Look at this. This is like a gelato place. And this is a very famous rooftop bar here. Hey, Mariana, Texas says, I have a property here in Houston that is paid in full, that is worth $89,000 appraised now. It needs about $15K in repairs. Should I repair and then sell and negotiate that off the selling price? I don't know. I think that's very, very personal decision to you. Are you interested in maybe fixing it up a little bit and renting it out? I mean, I'm not too sure about the Houston market, right? That's not really my expertise, but I think it just depends. What are you going to use that liquidity for? Are you going to invest it into, the stock market? I don't know what your retirement nest egg looks like, or some people don't want to be a landlord. They don't want to be in the business of being a landlord, but it's always nice to have assets, particularly in retirement. As I kind of do an audit of all of the really, really wealthy and successful people I know, almost every single one of them owns multiple properties and at least some cash flowing real estate. So I think it's important, right? Even from a psychological standpoint, and let me just I gotta plug in my phone here. A lot of times, life is crazy, as we all know, and life is very unpredictable. And having a lot of liquidity sitting around, in some cases, isn't necessarily the best thing. Hold on one second. I gotta plug in my phone before it dies. All right, we should be good. But, one of the things that I was going to say is, life is very crazy and unexpected things can happen. And I think it's always good to at least have some property in your portfolio that kind of holds some of your liquidity, because you want some of your net worth to be illiquid to kind of keep your hands away from the money, if that makes sense. I don't know if I'm explaining that correctly. It's more of a psychological thing. But, sometimes people are like, maybe I'll buy this new car, or maybe I'll buy this. That may not be the best investment. But if you have a lot of equity in your home and you're renting it out, or maybe even you're just living in it, it's hard to get to that equity, which kind of is like a psychological barrier to say, hey, don't touch it. That's kind of why the Harvard Business School study, really about the United States in general, the vast majority of Americans' net worth is made up in equity in their homes. And there's many potential reasons for that. The reason that I believe that is the case is exactly that. Things happen all the time. Crazy things happen all the time. And having money tied up in your home kind of forces you to save, in essence, in an aspect, right? But if you have stocks, you could easily liquidate that and go buy something stupid. If you have cash laying around, you could just easily spend that. So for many Americans, having at least some property forces you to save some type of money. Now, again, that's just my thesis on it, but I don't know. What do you guys think? Hey, Carl Roth, it's Tom. It's always nice to have cash in the bank that you add a bit and watch it grow, for sure. Someone says Buffett is sitting on a mountain of cash still. Yeah, but Buffett is at a whole other level. He takes, stakes, massive stakes in companies. And that's another kind of fallacy on Wall Street. The most obvious advice people give out is, you got to be super diversified. Diversification is key. When you look at the greatest investors of all time, that's actually not the case. It's actually the complete opposite of that. Warren Buffett is not really diversified. What he does is he does extraordinary diligence on a few businesses that have ridiculously wide moats, and he takes a monster position in those companies and makes very, very large, concentrated bets in a very few sure things. And if you do an audit of all the best money managers, hedge fund managers, business people in general, you'll see that the lion's share of their wealth has all came from a very few things, right? Maybe they started a business, maybe they made a big investment in a company, maybe they did some big LBO deal, right? So it's kind of almost like a misnomer to the public to say, you know, if you're going to buy stocks, you should buy like 50 stocks. It's actually exactly the opposite of what you should do. But it's interesting. It's very, very interesting. Hey, Krog Dog says, Tom, this is where we first met. I know, I met you right over there. Pleasure meeting you, by the way. It was fun stuff. Fun stuff. This is New York City's Flatiron Building. Right here. But let's head to the Village. We're running a little bit behind on time, but that's all right. No big deal, team. We can get down to the Village in no time. We just gotta pick up the pace a little bit. I think this would be a good exercise for everybody in the chat. So for anybody who's watching now, you know, I'm sure all of us have had some success in life, right? Everybody that's watching this, you know, from what I've been interacting with all of you for the past 2 years, I find you very competent, capable, smart human beings. And I really do mean that. So everybody here has probably had some sort of success throughout the course of their life. Now, if you go back and do an audit on that success, chances are, right, you've made the lion's share of your money picking like one or two things and doubling down on that. Maybe it was a career, maybe it was a house you bought, maybe it was an investment you've made, a business you've started. You know, perhaps there's a lot of small business owners. Maybe a lot of your net worth is tied up in the valuation of your business. So you can kind of work backwards like that, and I would say chances are that's probably the case. East 21st Street, approaching approaching Washington Square Park, all the way down by NYU. Love the architecture down here. Arby's is good health and calmness is success. I would agree. Yeah, Jeff W277 says you could be diversified in just 5 stocks, for sure. Now, some people, what they say is, oh, I'm super diversified. I own 50 stocks. But when you look at their portfolio, every single stock that they own is an oil company, right? Or is in the tech sector. That's all going to have the same exact beta, and it's all going to move the same. So you need to have sector diversification too. You know, if you say, oh, I'm well diversified. I own Apple, I own Alphabet, and I own Nvidia. Those stocks are generally going to move in tandem with one another. If Nvidia's up, chances are Microsoft is going to be up. Wow, look at this building. This used to have scaffolding all over it. This looks really nice. Hey, Justin says, is Greenwich Village and the East Village the same? It is not. Hang with Mark Mom says, Tom, my success was because someone believed. Oops. Believed in me and gave me a hand up in life. From there, I worked hard to pay it back and forward to others. For sure. That's awesome. All right, let's continue to push southbound. Sharon, thank you so much for watching. Appreciate it. Take care. travel niece. This is what did I have for dinner. I actually didn't have dinner yet. I may have dinner at maybe Bleecker Street. Cheese Puffs says luck plays a part. Luck plays a huge part. I think I've been incredibly lucky in my life. Luck plays a huge part in success. And I think anybody who says differently is lying. Luck plays a tremendous part in success. And that's why, not to kind of sound like a broken record, just being born in a Western society, in a free country where information is so readily available, like the US, I mean, that is a huge head start in life in and of itself, right? You know, you could be born in a war-torn country. That's something you can't control. But also, one thing, you can kind of control your luck to an extent. You got to give yourself more opportunities to get lucky, which means getting in more repetitions, putting in more effort, getting in front of the right people. So the more effort you exert into the universe, the more opportunities you have at getting lucky. And there's also just people who are born geniuses, okay? There's nothing that I could ever do, and chances are, I mean, I won't speak for anybody in the chat, but generally speaking, there's nothing that anybody here can do to be on the same level as Zuckerberg, as Bezos, as, you know, Elon Musk. These people are just built differently. They're geniuses of our time. So that aspect, they were kind of born with that, I mean, just unbelievable intellect. Someone says Zuckerberg stole the website from his partner. Allegedly. Allegedly. But you know, even if, okay, let's just all agree and say, okay, even if Zuckerberg did steal Facebook, right, we'll give you that one. I have a feeling that Zuckerberg would still be a multi-billionaire, even if he wasn't involved in Facebook at all. I mean, you could tell Zuckerberg is just a total operator, right? The guy is a complete operator as a CEO. So even if, let's say, the litigation played out and Zuckerberg was thrown out of Facebook, he would still go on to do something incredible. And he'd probably be, if not a multi-millionaire, he'd probably still be billionaire status. So a few more blocks, everybody, and we will be at Washington Square Park. You could also see the spire of the Empire State Building too. Elliott Wave Reviews is not too sure about that. Well, I mean, look what he's done with Facebook. You know, the stock was down 77%. A lot of people forget that. Just a year ago, the stock was down 77%. Zuckerberg totally revamped and overhauled the company, turned it around single-handedly, and created unbelievable shareholder value in under 24 months. In under 20 months, the stock is now trading at all-time record highs. It tripled its profitability last quarter. I mean, not a lot of people, not a lot of CEOs can do that. You know, especially being in his early 30s, I think he is. That is not an easy task. Someone says Truth Social. You know, I haven't been following that whole thing, but apparently, what, Donald Trump is set to make like $3 billion or something like that on his equity in Truth Social. Is that right? I don't know. I don't use Truth Social. The only types of social media I use, obviously, is YouTube and X, formerly known as Twitter, and also IG, Instagram. I don't use Facebook, but I just don't really see any value in Truth Social. I mean, I'm sorry. I don't know. Maybe it's just because I haven't tried it out. Maybe I will try it out. I just really don't have any interest in joining Truth Social. I don't know. Does anybody here have Truth Social? Is it compelling? Like, what is the thesis on Truth Social? Why can't I just use X, or formerly known as Twitter? Whoa, someone says $4 to $10 billion. That's insane. Hey, Jennifer Johnson says FCNTX is doing great. What is that? Is that the Fidelity Contra? I think that's Fidelity Contra. But Jennifer Johnson, it's good to see you. Thanks for joining us. Yeah, Fidelity Contra is one of the greatest mutual funds of all time. Along with Fidelity Magellan, when Peter Lynch, arguably one of the, I would say, most notable and greatest investors of our time, Peter Lynch. Someone says heck no. Someone says Truth Social is great. I don't have it. I'm seeing a lot of I don't have it. G. Raymond says there is no value in Truth Social unless you want to hang with other morally vacant individuals. I don't know about that, Raymond G. I don't necessarily agree with that comment. Not everybody that's, you know, supports Donald Trump is morally vacant. That's just a general statement. I have a lot of friends who are Trump supporters. I have a lot of friends who voted for Biden. You know, this is America. You can vote for whoever you want to vote for. Doesn't mean you're morally vacant. I think that's a little pushing it. But in terms of the social media platform, I just don't see a value proposition in it for me to create a whole other account on it. I just, like, are they innovating anything? I guess that's kind of the question. Is there something innovative that they're doing different than what X is doing, than what Facebook is doing? I just don't see an X factor there, to be honest. I just don't see anything new that they're doing. All right, East 11th.
Glad I had those waterproof shoes on, huh?
Ooh, that guy stepped in this massive puddle. So once we get to the very end of Washington Square Park, we're going to make a right, and that is going to bring us to MacDougal Street, which is a very, very fun neighborhood to be in, particularly when you're young. Someone says no IPO is going to generate, I don't know, I mean, you'd be surprised. You know, you'd be very, very surprised. Look what happened with the whole SPAC mania in 2021. Investors ate up all of this special purpose acquisition junk. So you never know. You'd be surprised. You know, that irrational exuberance can run wild. Look at that. Beautiful shot of the World Trade Center here. Amazing. Peter says Truth Social's claim is that they don't censor your content, as others do. X has reduced its censoring of content since Elon Musk took it over. Carl Roth says I invest in books. I actually do too, surprisingly. Maybe one day I'll take you guys on a behind the scenes at home live stream at my place in Miami. I have a pretty interesting library that I think many of you would be interested in. Over the years, I've accumulated some fairly impressive and very rare finance books that I think you would all enjoy. The key is you got to go to a lot of these estate sales. And oftentimes, particularly in upstate New York, the Upper East Side of Manhattan, the millennials that are inheriting these properties, they don't understand the kind of gold mine that they're sitting on in terms of just the sheer size of some of the libraries that are being sold with these estates. You have some books from, the early 1900s, the first edition of, Reminiscences of a Stock Operator, original copies of, Margin of Safety by Seth Klarman. Just incredible stuff could be found. I have some of the most original first edition copies of some of the most rare finance books ever published. G. Raymond says, yeah, let's see some of those books. I'll take you guys for sure. I'd be more than happy to show you. That's one of the things I used to do in college, is go around to some of these underground bookstores here that would specifically buy used books from estate sales, and you can find crazy gems in these places in New York City. I even have some books that have, very famous celebrities and former CEOs of investment banks that hand wrote letters to their wives, to their employees. Congratulations on your promotion. Here's a copy of, XYZ book. It's really cool stuff. I will definitely fill you guys in on that. Mariana, what's up? I know Brad says, Thomas, some amazing books, The Holy Grail. I've showed Brad some of my collection. Yeah, it's quite impressive. Not to brag too much, but all right, let's focus here. We're making good time. This is Washington Square Park. We got great views of the World Trade Center here. Lots of college students enjoying the Friday night here in the park. Pretty cool. Beautiful night out, by the way. The wind totally subsided. See, I don't mind the cold if it's just not windy. If it's like this is perfect weather here. No way. Jonathan from Florida says you got a Jimmy Buffett autographed album for $3 from an estate sale. Oh, that's a treasure. That's a treasure. It's unfortunately we lost Jimmy Buffett, and I don't think I mentioned this on the stream, but I'm not a huge country music guy, but Toby Keith passed away. I believe he had cancer. I had no idea he was even suffering from cancer. It's so it's just so horrible and heartbreaking. You know, even if you're not a country music fan, chances are if you ever listen to Toby Keith's song, he's just like a funny guy, man. Just a funny dude. And to see, I was, you know, going down a rabbit hole on YouTube, watching some of his final interviews. And it really puts into perspective how just horrible cancer is, right? I mean, it may be an obvious statement, but I mean, it just makes you look like a totally different person. It's so sad. But yeah, Jimmy Buffett, that's awesome. I listen to Jimmy Buffett every time I'm in Miami, riding around in the Vespa. Good times for sure. Okay, this is West 3rd Street. I know Brian Amps told Keith that pancreatic cancer. It's sad because pancreatic cancer is so difficult to detect. It's so hard to detect. And you only really know when you have a diagnosis of pancreatic cancer is when it's pretty much, not to be too grim, but when it's like too late. Because it's so difficult to detect. And once you have the symptoms, you know, the symptoms start to show up when it's already spread and become very deeply entrenched. So it's tough, it's heartbreaking, for sure. All right, so we are now to MacDougal Street. Not too far out.
Everything is just going in my head.
RB says, I bet you could walk another 6 hours. I don't know about that. Maybe another 2 hours, perhaps. This is Sullivan Street. Okay, guys, this is MacDougal Street. Very fun place to be. I believe the Comedy Cellar is directly in front of us. We'll check that out. Zozo Bob, what's up? Hey, Dave's Tom, I'm here sending you my best. Thanks, Dave. Appreciate you. Looks like there's something going on, some big event going on tonight at both the Comedy Cellar and the Blue Note Jazz. Well, line is pretty long. A lot busier than I expected, actually. Crazy busy tonight. This is the Comedy Cellar at Village Underground. Oops, sorry. We'll stand over here out of people's way so we can get a better view. Blue Note Jazz. Line is all the way down the block. And the line for the Comedy Cellar is all the way down the block too. It kind of puts it in perspective, like, you know, everybody's like New York is dead, nobody's coming to New York, but this place is full. You know, shows I would assume are sold out. I mean, look at all these people. It stretches all the way down the block. Yeah, we'll do a lap around the neighborhood. This is a really, really fun place to be. All right, let's do a lap here. We'll make a left and go down. Right as you turn on 6th Avenue here, you have really good views of the Empire. Or not the Empire, the World Trade Center. Sorry about that. Wow, it's almost 11 o'clock at night. I had no idea. See, when it's not cold out, we could stream for a little bit longer duration, I feel.
No, I didn't. I follow me.
All right, everybody. Well, we've been going for 2 hours. Where did the time go? But we will be back live tomorrow, starting at 8:30. So if you enjoyed the live stream tonight, feel free to click the subscribe button and join us tomorrow. Also, click the like button as well. And if you enjoy the conversations we talk about each and every day on the stream, we also write a free investing newsletter called Behind the Street, where we talk about US equities, fixed income, emerging markets, and New York City real estate. So if anybody's looking to buy, sell in Manhattan, I am on one of the top New York City sales teams, the Kirsten Jordan team at Douglas Elliman. You may have seen us on the show $1 Million Listing New York. So if you want to connect, just scan the QR code on your screen, punch in your email, and we will see you all tomorrow live from New York. Joseph Hardaway, thanks so much. NAV407, thank you. Western Mass Dave, Hang with Mark Mom, all of our moderators. There's always a bull market somewhere. You just need to know where to look. We'll see you all tomorrow night here live from New York City. Thanks so much.